So over in this tab, I've got a sample Bamboo project. If you've used Bamboo before, then some of this terminology will be familiar. Within this project, I have a sample build plan I've created. Now, this build plan is set up to clone a Maven repository, a Maven build from a remote Git repository. It's a very simple Maven build. It just builds a Spring Boot project. It's purely to demonstrate Bamboo building stuff. So if I go into the plan configuration for this plan, you'll see I've got a default stage called test and deploy. If I click into there, there's going to be a couple of tasks for this plan. First one, source code checkout, is self-explanatory. It's going to clone the Git repository for this demo. And underneath it, we have something interesting called a ScriptRunner Scriptable Task. So what are Scriptable Tasks? Scriptable Tasks allow you to write Groovy code using the Bamboo Specs API to create and modify Bamboo tasks at runtime, which means you can do dynamic stuff based on build parameters, branch names, etc. Allows you to do lots of cool dynamic stuff at runtime in your build. So the example I've got here is taken from our documentation. The sample code here gets the branch name of the currently running build. And based on that branch name, it chooses some Maven goals to execute. So if we're running on a branch other than master, we're going to do the Maven goals clean and test. And if we are running on master, we're going to add an additional goal of deploy, which will trigger the project to be deployed to a local Nexus repository I have set up. And the code here is using the Bamboo Specs API. It's Bamboo's configuration as code platform. And the code here was actually generated from a Maven task that was created in Bamboo. You can use, there's a UI for copying a task as code. That's explained in the documentation. So essentially, at runtime, it's going to kick off a Maven build. If you're building a feature branch, it's just going to test it. If you're building master, it's going to test it and then deploy it. So I'm going to show an example of that working. So I'll start off with a feature branch. Like I said previously, feature branches, the scriptable task is going to run when the build runs. Going to check the branch name. Going to see this isn't the master branch, so all I want to do is run some tests. I'm going to kick this off. Have a look in the logs. So it's doing its thing, it's compiling, and that's running some tests. Okay, test green build success. And you can see in the logs, the last thing this build did was execute tests. So now if I switch branch, keeping in mind I'm still on the same build plan, still in the same project, all I've done is change the branch name. If I go and run again, we should see some slightly different output in the logs. So again, scriptable task is going to run whilst the build's running. It's going to use the Bamboo Specs API. It's going to look at the current branch name, and that branch name's master. So it's going to dynamically add an additional task to this build to trigger off a Maven deploy goal. So you can see the tests are running as they were before. And after this finishes, okay, so differing to the last run, which ended with testing, this has actually ended with a lot of log output about the Maven deploy plugin. And if I switch tab to the Nexus repository that's configured for this Maven build, and I check in Maven releases, we'll see that a jar has actually been deployed as part of that build. And this wouldn't have happened if I was building on a feature branch. So that is a very simple example of a scriptable task doing some dynamic additions of tasks at runtime.